Welcome to our Superfoods to be Super Fit webinar. My name is Natasha Ward and I'm one of the dietitians at Baldwin Area Medical Center.
And I'm Sherry Rote, one of the dietitians also here.
We're going to talk about different types of nutrients that are anti-inflammatory. And we just want to give you a reminder before we get started that you should try to hold questions until the end if you can, and avoid sharing content. We will be sharing a PowerPoint or PowerPoint slides just in a few minutes here, and through most of the program you will be seeing the slides, and at the very end you'll see us again. If you're having issues with not hearing us or anything like that, you can use the messaging feature, and we'll see that and be able to try to help you. So I think we will get started. All right, so why are we talking about this? You've heard probably a lot about inflammation and the all of the different diseases that inflammation can be a part of or maybe the cause of. Some of the main ones that you might hear about are fibromyalgia, chronic pain, diabetes, heart disease, depression, anxiety, and arthritis. Inflammation in a way can be a good thing. It's part of how our body fights invaders or disease, but too much inflammation can be an issue, and that's where many of these chronic diseases can come from. We do know that inflammation can be caused by many things, including how we eat. So what are phytonutrients? Phytonutrients can help fight inflammation. So they're actually naturally occurring substances that are in many different foods. There are literally thousands or maybe more of them. We don't know all of their names yet. We're still studying all of these foods to try to find out what phytonutrients do, what process, but we do know about quite a few of them, and we know many of the foods that contain a lot of phytonutrients. So you can kind of see, they have many jobs. They help our cells to communicate. They have anti-inflammatory abilities, so they actually can fight inflammation and help prevent it. They can help prevent mutation. So if you think about in cancer, things like that, that's where phytonutrients can maybe play a role in prevention because they can stop that mutation of those bad cells. And then they have many other functions that we haven't quite figured out yet, but we do know that they play a role in health.
So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the new foods that are in the news right now, and then we're going to look at some of the ones that we know about and maybe don't really know why we should be eating them. So the first one we're going to kind of look at is called black seeds. And to be honest, neither Tasha or I have tried these yet, but I did a little research on them, and it appears that they're often called black cumin. And the taste, from what I've read, is a very strong and bitter taste. But actually they were used in medicines over 2,000 years ago, and they actually found the seeds in King Tut's tomb. So very interesting. So back then they were used for headaches, for toothaches, for congestion, intestinal worms, pink eye. So you can see they kind of ran the gambit, and they used it for a lot of different things. Today they use it for treating some digestive issues, so you can still find black seeds in some of our medicines. Gas, colic, constipation, diarrheas, and then there is some strong evidence that they do help with respiratory issues like asthma and allergies. There's a little bit of evidence that they might help reduce blood pressure, that they might be beneficial for cholesterol, and that they might help boost our immune system. There are some studies that have been done, but mostly just with mice, that they can help keep blood sugars in control if you have type 2 diabetes. So the recommended serving portion of black seeds is about a teaspoon, and you're supposed to do it 2 times a day if you can. Taking a teaspoon with some honey can help with the bitterness and the strong flavor of the black seeds, or some people just eat them plain, or some will sprinkle them on top of breads that they're preparing for their crust. So Again, they're kind of new in our world. Where can you find them? I Googled them on Amazon, and black seeds are available there. So I'm sure they're probably at health food stores as well. So haven't seen them at Nielsen's, but we could ask and they could get there. So they're very good about that. So second herb that we've seen in the news a lot in the past years is turmeric. So turmeric is that yellow color that's in the mustard that we might eat. It's in the curry powder for our Indian curries that we might eat. It's actually the yellow pigment that's called curcumin that has been shown to have the anti-inflammatory properties. But they've been using turmeric for hundreds of years in China and India and have known that it's been very good for inflammation. Some of the things that they believe, and there are some studies out there, is Alzheimer's, that they think that it may help block the formation of that beta amyloid that's in your brain. It can relieve some of the pain, joint achiness that you might have with rheumatoid arthritis. And then there are some studies out there linking that it can maybe help slow down the spread of colon cancer, prostate cancer, oral cancers. And Tasha and I were at a conference a year ago, and they were talking about turmeric, and they said the best way for us to absorb turmeric is with a little bit of black pepper. So the next category is seaweed. And seaweed is high in minerals and high in protein. However, the portion size of seaweed is 2 tablespoons, so it makes it a little hard to say that you're necessarily going to get a lot of protein or a lot of minerals from it, but one of the highest levels of iodine in the 2 tablespoons, so it's very helpful in helping promote good thyroid health. So it has a lot of vitamin C in it. It's an omega-3 plant-based omega-3 for us, so it's super good. And some different ways, if you're looking at this at the PowerPoint right now, you're seeing a little seaweed salad. So other ways, we've talked a lot about kale chips. Now you can get seaweed chips, algae chips. There are some seaweed crackers that are available. So if you haven't tried those yet, that might be something that you want to try again. Have not seen those at Nielsen's either, but I'm sure at any health food store you would find seaweed. So, or Trader Joe's probably has seaweed as well. So on the right-hand side, the oldies but goodies. Flaxseed, chia seed, hemp seed, wheat germ, all awesome and wonderful for us. Flaxseed is high source of plant-based omega-3s. It's one of the highest sources actually. So it has soluble and insoluble fiber in 2 tablespoons. There's 5 grams of fiber. So it's a great antioxidant for us. The seed, if you want to buy the seed, that's fine, but you'll probably need to grind it. Otherwise, you're not going to absorb the benefits very well. But you can get meal that's already prepared for you as well. So that's best stored in the refrigerator, or what you're not using in the freezer. Chia seeds, another great option, wonderful omega-3s. In 3 tablespoons of chia seeds, you can get 11 grams of fiber and 5 grams of protein. So, so very, very awesome for us as well. Chia seeds can be just stored in the cupboard, in your pantry. They have like a 3-year shelf life. So that's one of the benefits of chia seeds over flax seeds. Flaxseed has a nuttier flavor. Chia seeds tend to not have much taste at all. So if that makes a difference for you as well. So hemp seed, 4 tablespoons of hemp seed equals about 15 grams of protein, 3 grams of fiber. It has a great 3-to-1 ratio of our essential fatty omega-3s and omega-6s that we need in our diet. Wheat germ is high in B vitamins, high in fiber, high in omega-3s, and it has phytosterols that actually help reduce that bad cholesterol. So all wonderful to add to our diet.
All right. Well, another food that we probably all know is very healthy, but we still have to absolutely promote it, is broccoli. And of course, all of the cruciferous vegetable sidekicks to broccoli, like Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale, turnips, cauliflower, collards, bok choy, mustard greens, and Swiss chard. All of these vegetables, but of course particularly broccoli, are just jam-packed with nutrients. You can see the sulforaphane is one of the first nutrients that's listed, and that actually, the sulfur component is a big part of how we can make glutathione. Glutathione is a molecule that we already actually do make in our liver or is produced in our liver, but the many toxins that we encounter in the environment and from poor diet and medications and stress can lower our levels of glutathione in our body, which is really a crucial molecule to have. So sulfur and sulfur-containing foods like these foods listed, and also onions and garlic, can really actually help increase your glutathione levels. So obviously we want to try to eat these types of foods as often as we can. I'd usually recommend even at least 1 serving per day. Many other nutrients that it also contains: the indoles, the folate, fiber, calcium, vitamin C and K, beta-carotene, and lutein, which is great for your eyes. But all of these have actually different jobs and very important jobs in the body and in digestion. You can eat broccoli raw and cooked. Obviously, if it's cooked, you might end up eating a larger amount, so you might get a little bit more nutrients, but raw is very important too. As you can see, it actually has more vitamin C. Cooked will have more carotenoids just because when it's cooked, they'll actually be more condensed. It makes it more bioavailable as well. Broccoli is a vegetable that's been studied and has a really strong inverse association with colon cancer. So once again, a really important reason to eat broccoli, but of course if you've ever smoked, then you really should be eating your broccoli. If you don't like broccoli though, you could certainly focus on some of those other foods in the cruciferous vegetable group. Beans. We love to talk about beans. Beans are a great source of protein for vegans and vegetarians. Also contain a lot of fiber. They contain the most soluble fiber of any food that you can really find that's readily available. When we're talking about beans, we often are mainly referring to dried beans and peas, like the black beans, the pinto, navy, the white beans, garbanzo beans. A lot of times I think people assume I'm referring to green beans. Those are still in this group, but their nutrient content is a little bit different because they have the shell on the outside that is doesn't quite contain the same nutrients as the beans on the inside. Beans, the dried beans, are a great source of B vitamins, many B vitamins actually, as well as iron. Once again, a reason to be a good choice for vegetarians and vegans. It is better absorbed with vitamin C, so foods that contain vitamin C, like actually broccoli and some of those foods you saw before, in addition to your citrus fruits, it's good to eat those together. You don't necessarily have to eat them in the same mix, but you might want to eat them at the same meal because you're going to absorb your iron better. Other nutrients: folate, potassium, magnesium, very important for blood pressure, and of course many other important bodily functions. And then beans are also very high in phytonutrients. In fact, I've read some articles that the antioxidant level of red kidney beans is actually one of the highest of most foods, and actually higher than broccoli. Blueberries. Definitely another one of our favorites. We can't go without mentioning blueberries. Blueberries is probably the best of the berry group, but they all are very important, and eating them together is even better. So we have their sidekicks listed with the grapes, the cranberries, the raspberries, the strawberries. All of them are good and have very good qualities and great nutrient levels. Blueberries just happen to pack a slightly higher amount. But they have a great synergy if you eat them together of multiple nutrients and many phytonutrients and polyphenols. So those are those anti-inflammatory nutrients. They also have carotenoids, phytoestrogens, fiber, folate, and more vitamin C, E, potassium, magnesium, iron. And of course, they're low calorie. So a lot of times when people tell me that they're avoiding certain fruits because they have too much sugar, if that's a valid thing that they're looking at doing, focusing on berries as your main fruit is definitely a good way to go. You get a whole cup for basically a serving of carbohydrate, and they obviously have a ton of nutrients that you don't want to miss out
All right, we're going to talk a little bit about pumpkin. This one is one that we often don't think about. We think about it at Halloween for our kids as we're carving our pumpkins, or we think about pumpkin pies at Thanksgiving, but actually it's a wonderful source of antioxidant for us. The sidekicks would be carrots and butternut squash, sweet potatoes, orange bell peppers. So we're thinking about that orange color, the dark yellow color. So pumpkin contains alpha carotene, beta carotene, high fiber. It's low in calories. It has vitamin C and E, and it has potassium and magnesium as well. So pumpkins are from the gourd family. So in Native Americans use the flesh. They would either dry it or they would eat it roasted, and they would use the seeds for medicinal properties. And they used to like to take the whole pumpkin, open it up, and then pull out all the seeds and then just fill it with milk, some honey, and some seasonings and put it in the ashes. And so that's kind of how our pumpkin pies at Thanksgiving kind of started. So a half a cup serving of pumpkin can give you more than 2 times your recommended daily dietary intake of alpha carotene and 100% of beta carotene. So it's one of the richest bioavailable carotenoids that we can get in our diet. So thinking about pumpkin, how do you have it? Sometimes if you're making a stew, or you're making chili, or you're making spaghetti sauce, throwing in a cup of squash, or throwing even in a cup of pumpkin, because pumpkin isn't sweet until we add sugar to it. You know, you're going to add a whole bunch of wonderful antioxidants to that soup or chili or whatever you're making. You know, we have a wonderful recipe online for pumpkin pudding, but pumpkin lattes in the fall are wonderful. So lots of ways to get pumpkin into your diet. So trying to include it once in a while, or trying to include some of the sidekicks as well. Carrots, you are fine raw, but you will absorb all the good carotene out of if you cook them. So better to do it that way if you can. So, all right. Next group, often people are going gluten-free. So, and I always like to recommend that there are some whole grain options that we can have out there that do not have gluten. So when we think of gluten, it's wheat and rye and barley. As you can see from this list, there's lots of other options that we can include. Grains have wonderful B vitamins, and those B vitamins help us feel good and give us good energy. So trying to include them is really important. So quinoa, it looks like little tiny round pebbles when you get it. So they recommend that if you can, to rinse that off, rinse those little, because they have a little coating on them that can make them a little bit bitter if you don't. But usually the taste of quinoa is very mild and nutty. So they have all the essential amino acids, so they're called a complete protein in a grain. That doesn't happen very often. So they're the highest grain in iron, and they're rich in potassium. So you can substitute this grain for any kind of grain that you might be thinking about using. And rice is one that I often will substitute quinoa for. It's wonderful made into hot cereals, or you can grind it into flour and use it in your baking, and it will add a lot of moisture to your recipe. The second grain is teff. And this one is a very nutrient-dense, very tiny grain as well, and this is grown in Ethiopia. And it also has a mild and nutty flavor, and it's high in protein, high in fiber, and you can substitute part of the flour in your baked goods with teff. So, or you can use it in grains and other recipes. So it's a good thickener for soups and stews, and it works well in stir fries and casseroles. So brown and black and wild rices and white rice is also gluten-free, just won't have that bran. So that bran layer and all the nutrients that go with it. So all of those rices are an excellent source of niacin, magnesium, manganese, and selenium, and vitamin E. And their selenium deficiencies, I've just read an article that they're really kind of tying that to some of the thyroid issues that we're seeing more and more of, so that we actually have a selenium deficiency going on because we're not eating a lot of good whole grains. So having those as a side dish, or rice puddings, or hot cereal. And any recipe that calls for white rice, it's a nice place to kind of try those out. Black rice is called forbidden rice in China. Only the emperor was allowed to eat it. So it has, when you cook it, it will have, the water will turn purple. So it has that wonderful antioxidant like grapes and wine. So very, very good to add to your diet once in a while, and nice nutty flavor. And wild rice is actually not a rice, it's a grass. I think most people know that, but just a little side note. So the next one to try, if you haven't, is amaranth. So this one is actually a herb. It's not truly a grain, but it has a nutty taste and it looks like a grain. So it's high in protein and fiber and calcium and iron. And you can cook it as a cereal. You can ground it into flour. You can pop it like popcorn. So it's actually the seeds that we're eating. So you can sprout it. You can toast it. You can add it to stir fries, soups, or stews, and it will act as a thickening agent as well. So buckwheat. You would think that that might actually be a gluten, but it's not. And I found today, researching a little bit more on it, is that it is actually a fruit. It's related to rhubarb, so, but it tastes and looks a lot like a grain. So, and it has all of the essential amino acids. So buckwheat bran contains a flavonoid that helps reduce cholesterol. And you can purchase it as groat. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Or you can get it as just whole buckwheat as well at the store. And then last but not least is millet, and that has a mild, sweet, nutty taste. It's a good source, again, of protein, fiber, and niacin. And you can toast it for about 3 minutes, and that will just bring out that nutty flavor. You can use it as an alternative to potatoes or rice, or toss it into stir fries. So then lastly, a little bit about probiotics. And I know we did a presentation on that last time, so just remembering that the prebiotics, that's all that soluble fiber and onions and leeks that we talked about, honey, garlic, all help feed the probiotics in our gut. But these are the 4 foods that you can get that can actually have up to 1 trillion probiotics in them, and they're all fermented. Kefir is fermented cow's milk. Kimchi is a spicy fermented cabbage. Kombucha is a sweetened fermented tea. And then raw sauerkraut that's not pasteurized. So kind of think about how Grandma and Grandpa were making it back in the day when they had it in that crock. That's just raw sauerkraut. So we sent you some recipes. The PowerPoint that you just saw is going to be out on our Baldwin Area Medical Center Facebook page, or Western Wisconsin Health. I think it got changed already. So, and just kind of remembering that it's fun to try new foods, but just remembering that a lot of what we call common foods are usually filled with antioxidants. Think of all those dark leafy greens and all the fruits that are available in veggies, and extra olive virgin oil, coconut oil, all of those have great antioxidant properties. So, do you guys have any questions?
While we're waiting to see if anyone has any questions, we do want to give a shout out to our River Falls team, who's been an excellent. Thanks for joining us, you guys. We'll just give you another minute or so and see if there's any questions. Maybe another 20 seconds, I should say. You can always write in as well if you're too shy to talk. That's another
one
option.
person on camera. That was kind of exciting.
Someone asked if did you say lose the nutrients when carrots are cooked?
Someone asked about if we lose the nutrients when carrots are cooked, and I think Sherry was talking about that. I'll let her.
And you'll lose some of the vitamin C in them, but if you don't overcook them, I think that's the key with all the vegetables that we prepare. So really, even thinking about in the microwave, or you're nuking them, if you're cooking them in the on the stove in water, then yeah, a lot of that is going to leach into the water, and if you're just going to drain that water out, you're going to lose a lot of nutrients.
So if you steam them,
Yep.
you're more likely to keep some of the nutrients, or roast them or grill them.
Yep.
There's other ways to cook them. Boiling in water is typically when you'll lose some nutrients.
And the only exception to that would be is if you were making a big batch of soup and then you had all your vegetables in there and you were going to drink that broth. Now you're going to drink the nutrients. So if that makes sense.
That's a great question, though. I think there's a lot of confusion around different cooking practices and what can help you keep nutrients and what can help you lose nutrients. And of course, one other thing to consider, since we're hopefully just a couple more months away from farmers market season, the more fresh the food is, so if it's from your garden, if it's from the farmers market, if it's locally grown, the more nutrient dense it will be. The longer that a food has to travel and stay in storage, it will lose nutrients, essentially, and when it's exposed to light in the sun as well. So if you can get it fresh, try to. Of course, frozen is actually still a really good option because most fruits and vegetables now are flash frozen. Yeah. So they're frozen immediately out of the field. That means that they actually do retain a lot of their nutrients.
And if you go to the farmer's market and you're not going to use it, just doing that blanching process, usually it's a minute. But if you Google, they have like recommendations for different vegetables, how long to blanch them. But you just throw them in the water super hot, then you throw them in the ice super hot, and that's kind of like the flash freezing thing that they're talking about a little bit. But then you're going to have those vegetables for later too, which are a nice option.
All right, any other questions? All right, I think we have another webinar coming up in a couple of weeks, May 19th, and it is the metabolic shakeup. Being the information in the background here, if you can't tell. That is a fitness one. It's going to be a workout with our personal trainers, Alexis Warzon and Mel Johnson. And I think when they say metabolic shakeup, it makes me think there might be sweating involved. But I'm sure you can modify it a little bit if you're going to try to do it during your work day. And then you also can watch it later on our Facebook page if you want to do it at home. So I think we're going to sign off.
Thanks for joining us on this beautiful sunny day. Yeah.